Welcome to Pause for the Truth, where you can sit back, relax, and hear an honest dialogue about health, wealth, legal, and social issues. The hosts are Dr. Rogers Kane, family practice physician, and Jocelyn Turner, health education consultant, with co hosts from the Northeast Florida Medical Society and its foundation. Stay tuned for the truth about matters affecting you and your family. We're here to tell you what's really going on and why. Good evening and welcome to Pause for the Truth. I am your co-host Jocelyn Turner. So good to be here this evening. It was just a picture perfect day, in my opinion, here in Northeast Florida. Of course, I can't do this alone. Joining us this evening as my co-host, of course, is Dr. Rogers Kane. How are you doing this evening, Dr. Kane?
I'm doing absolutely great. I love your description, picture perfect, even though I was inside. I could at least look through the windows and see how great it looked outside. And when I walked out, I didn't have to worry about either putting a sweater on or taking clothes off. I think people appreciate about the last half the best.
Well, that's true today, but it's supposed to get down to the to like 50 degrees either tonight or tomorrow night.
I'm still gonna love it.
Yeah,
I'm
I
still
guess
gonna love it.
considering the alternative that a month ago it was twice that, right?
Right, right. I am
Yeah.
not having a problem with it. I'm not gonna argue against it. I'm just happy to be here.
Amen. Well, tonight is going to be an interesting topic. Still waiting on one guest to get on. I thought he
He's
was on
here.
with us. He,
Tyrone, bring in Mr. O'Neill.
oh, there he is. So we're happy to have three distinguished guests tonight to talk about bullying. How do we break the cycle of bullying? If we can figure that out in an hour, then the three of them might be out of a job tomorrow. We don't want to put them out of a job, but they're so talented, they'll find something else. So joining us this evening, and I'll let them just real quickly share something about themselves. And as I will start with our the woman in the crew, uh, Julia Henry Wilson. Julia, can you unmute and tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Hello, everyone. I am Julia Henry Wilson. I'm the director of our Center for Education, Careers, and Workforce Development at the Jacksonville Urban League. And proud to say I'm going into my 22nd year here at the Urban League and don't seem to be able to. I really don't even think about leaving. It's like my home away from home. So I definitely enjoy being here at the league and just learning and more in the community because I came from the Ivory Tower at Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Florida, what it was known then back then is Florida Blue now, but didn't know anything about what was going on in the community and all of that kind of good stuff. So I'm glad that I landed in this place, and I've learned a lot, and I'm still learning. So definitely glad to be a part of it, and whatever we can do here at the Urban League, we're more than willing to do so. If we can partner with you in any kind of way, we will.
And from what I hear, I'm happy. I hear that they're happy you're over at the Urban League because they really appreciate your services.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you telling me that.
Thank you, Julia. And I'm going to pause with Corey because he was having some technology issues. So while he figures that out, Sergeant Henley, Sergeant Richard Henley, how are you doing this evening? Tell our audience a little bit about yourself after you unmute.
Great. My name is Richard Henley. Been with the Jacksonville Sheriff Office for a little over 24 years. I'm a supervisor in our community engagement unit where I oversee our community engagement involvement, dealing with the communities and neighborhoods, helping bridging the gaps in neighborhoods and building stronger and safer communities. Um, Family of three. I have one brother, two sisters, and just happy to be a part.
Sergeant Henley, you barely look like you're 24. You talking about you 24 years of service. You're at a minimum. If you started at the age of 20, that means you'll be 44.
Yeah, I really have more than 24 years of service. I just counted my police time. In all, I have I'm on my 28th year.
Oh,
and I'll be out of here 4 more years.
wow.
Now,
Can
and
I
he said
borrow
that
some?
with a big smile.
Yeah, that's the other part. He got that big smile. Let me borrow some of those jeans for a second.
I love to smile. I love to be happy. So actually, I will miss this place when I do leave. So, but I'm very happy.
Ouch.
Well, welcome, Julia and Sergeant Henley. And Corey's having some technology issues, so he'll be back on as soon as he gets that worked out. So,
6:36 p.m.
I just touched my watch and it talked to me, 6:36 p.m. But anyway, what are you're on? You can hear it now, Corey?
Yes, I can hear.
Wonderful, wonderful. That was perfect timing. So, Corey, do me a favor before we begin the discussion and tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Unmute your mic.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Corey O'Neill. I work for the Partnership of Child Health. I oversee anti-gang prevention program along with our Children Exposed to Violence program. I work closely with Jacksonville Sheriff's Office and their gang unit to identify persons of interest, documented gang members, or individuals and youth affiliated with gangs. Been doing this work for about 4 years now. Prior to that, I worked for Healthy Families of Jacksonville, providing services to families and new moms and infants. Glad to be here.
And he's wearing that green for multiple reasons because of that. Oh, sorry, I didn't see the cap. They just toss it in my face.
Yeah, I know where he's going with it.
Julia, why are you waving your fingers? You can stop it.
That's why.
Julia, I want to start with you.
Okay.
What are the different forms of bullying and how can they manifest in various environments? I know it's not just in the school, and I'm asking you this question because I know bullying also happens in the workplace as well. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, you know what? I almost said I never really experienced bullying in the workplace, but I have. Sometimes you don't understand that it's bullying and you don't know that it's bullying. But after a while, when you leave, you say, I think I just got bullied. And, and especially back in the day at the cross, because you had to do what you were told. You were never asked. You had to do what you were told in order to keep a job. And they made it very, very clear that if you did not do what you were told, you would not be keeping that job. So when I think back over the years, and I spent 30 years over there, that yes, I have been experienced bullying in the workplace. And even here at the Jacksonville Urban League, because sometimes you think, oh, well, I can just do this or do that or do the other. And it's not so much bullying, but then you got to understand and realize that, yes, you do have to do what you're told to do because that's what you need to do, as opposed to kind of like just saying, okay, I can do this or I can do that and anything it is that I want to do. So it's not that form of bullying where it's an aggressive behavior, but it's the leadership and it's the sternness of, the leader leading and letting you know that you do have to abide by or follow the rules and the regulations, that are on the job. So sometimes it may feel that way, but you have to understand how important it is. And so I think what offsets it is being able to have conversations and being able to sit in meetings and talk to, the leadership about how you feel about something. So I think that's really the most important thing. But, like I say, down through the years, there have been, situations where I've once I walked off, I felt like, I just got bullied. And even in relationships, personal relationships, wherever you go in life, there's always somebody that's going to say or do something that make you feel that way.
I know you all have been doing some bullying prevention workshops for young people. How's that going, and what types of things have you noticed in them? And is it a difference in terms of the age if they're in middle school or elementary versus high school you found? And Officer Henley, I'm going to direct that to you afterwards next as well.
Miss Johnston, can I also ask them to define what bullying is?
I was going to get thanked, Tyrone.
I'm confused as when she said she thought she hadn't been bullied and then discovered that she was. I said, oh, Ooh, I got to get some answers now. So, can we get a definition of what bullying is?
Well, I will tell you what chat told me because I definitely went and asked chat. And chat said bullying is repeated aggressive behavior that can take various forms, including physical, verbal, and social actions intended to intimidate, harm, or control another individual. And then I do have to step back and say, I think I've bullied some people before down through the years, being in leadership, being in, even in friendships, because it's like, if this is what I want to do, then you're going to have to go along with it or else. And so, I think we all see it, feel it, experience it, but then I guess it depends on how you react to it or the severity of it, when you realize it or come to understand it. I also found out that it didn't just start, it started way back in the 20th century, when bullying first came about. And you don't really think back along those lines. You think it's just right now today, that somebody just started this. Because what I found was it says historical texts reference cruelty and harassment in schools and community early 20th century. So in the 1900s, this was going on, early 1900s, this was going on. So it's been out there for a while.
Thank you, Julia. Officer Henley, I think before you got in this role in community engagement, you were actually, and correct me if I'm wrong, you were actually you were in the schools and interface with students often. What type of bullying did you witness and or were you notified about that you had to deal with?
JT, before Officer Henley answer that, Sergeant Henley answer that. What is the definition of bullying by way of the JSO, Sergeant Henley? Is there a separate definition? Do y'all have that just to define it to us here?
Yes. Yeah, so this is going to go in a two-part direction because actually the Florida state statute does not recognize bullying as far as Florida state statute. So bullying mainly take place with the aggressive, unwanted to cause inferior to psychologically, mentally, or physically of one. So in the schools, they utilize the word bullying because it's definitely made in an aggressive manner to make someone feel inferior to another. The Jacksonville Sheriff Office, when we investigate these crimes, they fall up under our harassment. And when they're falling up under harassment, now we're talking once again the same thing as bullying, but we have to recognize it in the Florida state statute. So it has to be compatible, equivalent to what the Florida state statute defines in harassment to associate it with bullying. So we definitely understand when someone say that they're being bullied. We definitely understand that in our legal term that they're being harassed. And that's when we're talking about the teasing, the threatening, intimidation, stalking, anything that can actually cause, or whether it's mentally or physically, some type of psychological or physical harm. And that's how we actually look at bullying. So when it comes to the schools and when it comes to workplace, even workplace may have bullying, but a lot of times in the workplace, they will call it, I think slipped my mind, but more so of hostile environment, hostile working environment. So you have the hostile working environment, and technically we know that we can still quantify that as saying, okay, they're being bullied, but in actuality, they're being harassed, and it's an unwanted feeling that's being actually accepted when it comes to the words, which are going to be psychologically. But if it comes to the actual touching, then now we're talking about bullying being associated with battery. So that's how we work the bullying as far as with the Florida state statute. Working in the schools, we got it all the time where you know that the Jacksonville Sheriff Office is no longer securing the schools, it falls up under the Duval County School Board Police. We do have an active role that if there is a school that does not have a police officer or a guardian or a contracted security guard, then the Jacksonville Sheriff Office will send an officer to protect that school. But so I don't have the exact numbers. As back in the past, we used to keep up with the referrals and how many bullying referrals that are made in the Duval County School Board, and that information is then put out, and we're able to do seminars to design how do we prevent and how can we prohibit bullying, or how, in other words, how can we mitigate it. So, and I don't have those those numbers to be able to give that information of the bullying reports in the Duval County School Board, but I do know that that number continued to increase due to us being around young people on a daily basis. So we do get that information of bullying continue to increase, not just in schools, but even in our neighborhoods.
But you guys are putting that information together, you know, the number of incidents, whatever it might be in terms of how you guys review bullying. You're still putting that information together. You just don't have it now, is what you're saying, or you didn't stop putting, gathering that information, that info.
Yeah, the qualified information now is actually with the school board. So it's not the numbers that's given to Jacksonville Sheriff Office.
Okay.
That I can tell you that this is the number of bullying reports that we have thus far.
So it's on the school board, is what you're saying.
Because they don't handle, he said they don't handle security anymore. The school board hires their own law
Right, their own
enforcement
police officers. Right. I just was trying to make sure it was data. Since he mentioned data, I just want to make sure people understood that it's not their responsibility anymore to hold on or to gather that data, but it is the responsibility of another entity. In this case, it's a Duval County Public School System Police Force, I guess, and the Duval County Public
and the Duval County Public School Administration. Yes,
right.
Because you do have it where a lot of times those numbers are called by the referral base of disciplinary referrals versus the police base with the Duval County School Board, with the police officers actually writing a report for it. So those numbers would definitely come from the administrative side of the school board to actually provide that data or to provide that quantity of information as far as the number and whether it has increased, decreased, or whether it has remained the same over X amount of years.
Gotcha.
Thank you. And Corey, when you're going out and in the work you're doing with gang prevention, do you ever hear from those young folks that are in gangs that it started out, some of the situations they found themselves in, or did they lead to being in a gang because they were being bullied by some other young people?
Most definitely. When you look at the work that we do, I've in the past almost 4 years, I would say we'd had at least 8 to 10 participants or instances where a young kid was bullied because of where he lived at. And so he was kind of forced to join the gang for protection. If I don't join this gang, there's no protection for me at school. So it's not so much as I want to be in this gang, but I'm getting bullied based on where I live at. Number one. Number two, you're getting bullied because you are in a gang. You know, you may have gotten sent to an alternative school, Grand Park, and one of the rival gangs is heavy in that school, or you may have moved from, let's say, Mandarin to Terry Parker. Terry Parker is known for Group 3, which is a gang on the south side of Jacksonville. Heavy presence in Terry Parker High School. So moving from the east side to possibly the south side and going to a new school, you can get bullied because you're in a rival gang. But that is definitely prevalent. We've seen it. I've seen it several times. where a kid joined the gang for protection.
Wow. Ms. Turner, you still there? Okay. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
that's that, you go to school to learn, right? Right, everyone. And you think that that's just an added pressure that people are on. And I don't know if any of you can speak to it, but sometimes I've wondered, did these young people witness this type of behavior with the way the parents interact with one another, right? You know what I mean? In terms of if the and I'm sorry, I'm thinking it's in addition to it being Bullying Prevention Month, it's also Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And so it made me just, I don't know why in my mind and my thought processes, I lean toward that. Like, is this, and because if they witness one parent communicating or interacting with another parent that way, then they felt that it's acceptable, it's okay. So then they will go and act that way in school or around other people. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
I don't
Yeah,
think that's I don't think that's the illogical summation that you gave or the direction that you pointed that in. Because I would be curious to, see what the answer is along that line if anybody can support what you're just saying. So anybody.
Well, I believe that it is true because, and a lot of times when you hear about criminals and everything, and they say, well, this is a learned behavior from one of their parents. If the parents was like an abuser, domestic violence, then more than likely the son is going to adopt some of that stuff. Or even at the mom, she's going to always seem to gravitate toward those type of individuals, in relationships. And so I just think that it does come from within, which is a lot of where all of our stuff come from. It comes from within. And sometimes it does not come out in an aggressive way, but then there are times that it does. And so I think a child inside of the house, and experience a lot of those things is going to go one or two ways. They're going to grow up to be a bully themselves, or they're going to grow up to find themselves always the victim because they think once that happens, oh, I really do love you, I really care about you, I didn't really mean to do this. And so I think people have a tendency to follow that pattern, as to what happens.
Ms. Wilson, the only thing I would say is you say one or two, I might go one or three, I might have a third direction in which that to go. And that sometimes that people become defenders.
Yes.
When they witness what happens in the home, they decide that they want to defend that type, the individual that's being bullied, individual that's being bullied, defend. Whenever they go through life, they want to defend those people that are what's the word I'm looking for?
The victims, or
the victims. Yeah, the victims, that they victim defenders, and that's when sometimes people get hurt. And I was with you, my parents, my dad, he tried to bully my mom good enough. She stood up for herself, but it taught me that you don't allow that kind of stuff to happen to those who are weak and can't defend themselves, whether or not it's a physical defense form or just a defense in general, to giving them direction on how to cope with it and also as how to defend themselves, especially in a non-violent way.
Right.
Dr. Kane, one thing I in preparation for today, a terminology that I learned that I had never heard of before, upstanders. So if students are, for example, in a setting, or people in general in a setting and witnessing bullying, don't be a bystander, be an upstander. Intervene.
Step up.
Yeah, step up and intervene. Oftentimes we're afraid now because just like God rest his soul, that officer this weekend who stood up for that young woman, and then he ultimately lost his life. That's why people are reluctant nowadays to be an upstander, because you just don't know if people have a weapon and will take it beyond saying a few mean words and pull that gun on you. So it makes you just be so reluctant nowadays. Corey, I know one of the programs that you're involved in, as we work with young people, as you work with young people, is called PLAY, Preventing Long-Term Anger and Aggression in Youth. Can you tell our audience a little bit about that? Because I believe that program is effective in terms of mitigating those thoughts that young people have as they interact with others.
Yeah, I just wanted to offer a different perspective than Dr. Kane and Miss Julia when it comes from the learned behavior in the home. Whenever you're talking to primarily Black people, we want to associate our bullying with learned behavior in the home. We always go there, no matter not that we always, 9 times out of 10 when I'm in platforms, we a lot of times we blame the behavior of the youth based on what they see in the home, which I do not negate. But a lot of it is come from peer pressure. A lot of it because I want to be cool. And I will say this: the people that are the bullies that I've ran into, and you guys are talking to a bully. I'm gonna tell my story in just one second. The bullies I've ran into, they weren't from the hood. They weren't from the bullying that I've experienced and the bullying that I've done. Those that know I'm a senior pastor. About 5 or 6 years ago, someone inboxed me, and I was really mean and cruel to this person in middle school. And one day I put those old Roach motels they used to sell, where the Roach can go into the little bait, and I put some Roach. Yeah, I put some Roach motels up on her seat, and everybody laughed. And I was just ragging this girl all of maybe 7th grade and 8th grade. And this young lady, she inboxed me and told me she was in therapy. She contemplated killing herself. She never saw herself as beautiful because of that moment. And her therapist recommended she would reach out to me. Of course, my heart dropped. I was born and raised in church. My mom raised me right. My mom raised me to respect women. But it was the thrill of what I got from the reaction of my peers that made me do it. And, that thing still weighs on me today. We keep in contact. Check in on her. She deals with very serious mental health issues. And I'm part of the reason why she deals with them today. I'm part of the reason why she has separation anxiety from her kids. Because she's afraid for her kids to go to school, because she's afraid they're going to be treated the way she is treated. And her oldest daughter, which is 14, looks a split image of her. And so she's afraid that her daughter's not beautiful enough to go to school because people will pick on them. And so just from that angle, my mom raised me not right. I share with Auntie Jocelyn how I was raised. My mother, my mom, my mom, we come from a very respectful family. My mom did not know any of this, and because had she known, she probably would have beat the black off of me. But bullying is serious. It has a lasting impact. It messes with people's mental. It causes suicidal ideations, and again, to this day, I just feel horrible about it. I feel horrible about it, and I stress them, just my kids, of not being a bully, being someone who stand up to bullying. But I want to put myself out on a limb and put myself out and say I was on the other spectrum of bullying. I was the bully, and something happened over almost 30 years ago that someone's still impacting and reeling from. So,
if it makes
thank you for that space.
I never would have picked up on that. I'm still trying to comprehend how it is that you became at fault with, and maybe I'm missing something, how you became at fault with just putting up the Roach Motel. Maybe I just missed something. How it became.
Well, I pretty much harassed this girl like the whole middle school year. I think, and I was like, I'm saying we, a group, but I never say we because I can only take responsibility for myself. When Michelle Obama say, when they go low, we go high. In middle school, you went low, I went straight to hell, all the way down to the bottom. And so there's one incident between it just blew it, and I can't really stop what she did to me. I just love the attention that I was getting from my peers. I love to laugh. So every day we go to 7 years, they knew they would get a show from me. They knew they were going to show for me, not knowing that I was doing it at the expense of somebody else's peace. So that's the stuff that teenagers don't know. That's the stuff. And so when you yeah, I think of the movie Mean Girls, and I look at Lindsay Lohan's character. Lindsay Lohan came from a very respectable family, but the reaction she got from her peers when she became mean, it was like an endorphin going off. I'm just being honest. As a teenager, it's like, oh, this is a high. This is a thrill until you really realize this is not who I am. This is not cool. And looking back on my life, I knew it wasn't cool when I got older, but at the end of the day, I didn't know how detrimental it was to this young lady's life.
Wow, Corey, that's very powerful. And knowing Corey as I do, it's hard to believe that he actually did that. So you never know in growing up, and which is why I think it's so important that we have the conversations that we do. When we see people like, Officer Sergeant Henley show up at meetings and trying to bridge that gap between law enforcement and the community, these are the types of conversations that we need to have in terms of a dialogue that we need to have with law enforcement, sharing our experiences, sharing the experiences within our community, talk about our horrible neighbor who always puts their garbage can in our yard. You know what I mean? Because things like that. I remember when I had a young person that lived next door to me, and it was a 0 lot line. So he and his friends would always be standing in my driveway when I came home, right? And I'm like, I was, living by myself at the time. And so I told my friend, I'm not going to call him out, but he was working for DJJ, Department of Juvenile Justice at the time. He told me the next time I come home, and if they were in my driveway, just continue driving. Do not let them think that they were intimidating me, because the minute they thought that they were intimidating me, they would continue and it would get more aggressive. And so that's what I did. The very next day it happened, and I pulled in my driveway, or start to pull in, as though they were not there. And do you know, Sergeant Henley, I never had that problem again from them. They always move. It got to be a joke. I started telling myself, well, you all trust my driving. You trust it better than I do. You probably want to move out the way, right? Because when I pull in the garage, if I'm gonna knock my house down. So sometimes also I think it's the way, Sergeant Henley, that we communicate with each other. And I remember, I think in the past you did a workshop for us teaching young people how to interact with law enforcement, and that's so important to me. Don't always get aggressive and thinking that you got to man up, if you will, in terms of being aggressive and assertive with law enforcement. So when Julia talked a few minutes ago, I do believe that bullying happens in so many ways. Do you want to speak to that, Sergeant Henley?
You are absolutely correct. It does. It affect in so many ways. Julia is right. The thing I learned a long time ago, and Pastor O'Neill and many of us probably can attest to this, but it says a soft answer turns away wrath. You have to know how to provide an answer. And a lot of times we begin to answer out of our emotions that we're feeling right then. So if we're angry right then, we're going to respond angrily. And you have to think that, yes, the only person I can control is myself. But a lot of times I can control others by the way I respond to them.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's hard to fight somebody that have a smile on their face.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to be angry with a smile on your face. So it's knowing how to respond in times of adversity. And I share with young people, even when it comes to speaking with the police, it did not take much for me to understand it, because I came from a household where it was mandated that you said, yes, ma'am, yes, sir. It was mandated. We have shifted our norms now. And it was so inundated inside of me that at this time, I promise you, I say it to young people. I say yes, ma'am, and yes, sir to young people, because it's a form of just respecting the person for who they are. I don't even go with just saying someone that's elderly or older. It's you are a young man, you are a young lady, and I'm going to say yes, ma'am, yes, sir to you, even if you're younger than me. Because once again, even with police, if we know how to respond to our young people, once again, that turns away wrath. That turns away our young people responding to us negatively. We know ones that are mature, we know that if you have a mature mind and a mature mindset, then pretty much you can control yourself. So now I need to put myself in a place where I can assist with controlling you. And so how I respond to you will ease or mitigate most likely how you respond to me.
Mhm.
So if I'm talking to a young person and I know that they're disrespectful, I'm going to start off, yes, ma'am, yes, sir. Hey, man, you know what, man, I feel you. I feel you. Yeah, things like that. Because once again, I want their wrath to decrease. My goal is for me to go home at night and for them to be able to go home at night.
Yeah.
And if I can keep their wrath, no different than a young man who lost his life, a senseless murder, but once again from the wrath of someone else. And I'm not here to pick on anyone. I was not there. And there's things that we can Monday night quarterback all day long when it comes to these things. But we have to find out that although someone is aggressive, how do we respond to that aggressiveness? I know I'm the police. I know that I demand respect. But just because I demand respect, how do I get respect? I'd rather have you voluntarily give it to me than for me to demand it. Because even in my demand, I still may not get it until it turns to another situation. And now I feel like I'm the big bad wolf because I've handcuffed you and I've taken you to jail. What if we can turn that whole cycle around with effective communication?
Mhm.
And now we've reduced and mitigated the bullying on both sides, from the police side and the community side. So what if I change my mindset to affect your mindset?
Mhm. Mhm.
That's how.
Now has bullying increased, or is it just we are in a situation in society where we can report it easily? People feel more comfortable to report, because I heard Miss Wilson say that it's been around for a long time. So
Yeah.
is it on the rise, or is just the reporting incidences of it on the rise?
Bullying is definitely on the rise. It has definitely increased, augmented tremendously. Although we're bringing awareness to it, and once again, you begin to bring more awareness and more light to it, then you begin to see things. But um, we, as a society, in my opinion, without having case law doing an thesis on it, something like that. But really, even if you go, because I've been able to go to the detention center and speak to young guys at the detention center. So we've been able to grab some information regarding some of the bullying. And the more our young people are exposed to the penal system, the greater their chances of bullying is going to occur.
Wow.
Because in the penal system, you have to move into the place where you are either a part of the bully or you're going to get bullied. So you have to make some judgment call. And what happens is that same behavior follow you even when you are no longer in the penal system, because you have actually made this behavior a part of you. And it's no different even in the communities that, once again, you have certain people who are scared to go outside at night. That's because the people that's in that particular community has now put the fear in the community of coming out. So in other words, there go a psychological, mental bullying aspect that has been placed on us because it's causing us to be inferior. We are inferior now. So it's no different than Ms. Julia said. It comes in all forms, but it has definitely increased. That's why if we can do our best to not introduce the penal system to our young people, the greater chance we have with helping mitigate, along with other things. Definitely, definitely other things. This is my passion. This is what I live for. But we can begin to mitigate these things if we can do our best to keep them from being introduced to our juvenile justice system behind those walls.
Yeah, I really like what you said, though, in terms of your approach. When you come upon someone, you come upon them with a kind spirit, and I think about this election season, the bullying that happens even in politics. You listen to the horrible things that these people who want to be our leaders, or who consider themselves as leaders, and to me, I don't see a quality of bullying as a leadership quality. Rather, to me, it's a sign of weakness, in my opinion, more so than strength.
That's true.
And the more that we model good behavior, I look at Corey and thinking, I saw him clapping a minute ago. His little toddler is probably sitting right there by him. The behavior that he models with his children. Corey, I did want to get back to you and talk about play. And Julia, you also didn't talk about the work that you all have been doing as well, as far as bullying. But before I get to that, and I just want to give you both a heads up. No, I'm gonna pause before I get to the cyberbullying, because that's Tyrone's favorite topic. So Corey, first, I'm gonna ask you to talk a little bit about play, and how do you think that program helps young people in terms of hopefully decreasing the incidence of bullying?
Thank you so much. Real fast. So play is preventing long-term anger and aggression in youth. It was a program started by Dr. Howard Stevenson, who's a top professor at the University of Pennsylvania. And what it does is it helps it was designed to help young Black African-American men between the ages of 11 and 18 manage stress, manage anger, conflict resolution. So pretty much what it is you get a group of young men, go for like an 8-week cohort. For 30 to 45 minutes, you have physical activity. And what that physical activity does is you get these kids riled up. You get them upset, you get them mad, you get them angry. We cannot help youth manage anger if we never see them angry. We're always coming after the fact and try to figure out how do we fix it. So we intentionally get the youth riled up, get them upset, get them angry, and then we have what we call a group discussion. We talk about CLCBE, calculate how you feel on a scale of 1 to 10, locate where you feel it at. My palms get sweaty. You've had some youth, literally some of the toughest youth we know, say, I start crying. And we're like, hold on, you start crying? You're like, don't play me. When I start crying, F everything, it's on. So we're like, okay. So locate how you feel. Breathe and exhale, and then talk yourself through this. So that component of play, it helps us to be able to help the youth identify conflict resolution. We teach youth how to deal with racial tension and racial stressors, how to deal with police when they pull you over. Sergeant Henley, you wouldn't believe how many youth, when we talk to, if the police pull you over, what you're going to do? Run for what? What are you running for? Literally, like, what are you running for? I'm afraid. And that's why I got excited when I heard your approach to dealing with youth. And so Play is an excellent program where we're implement throughout the city. One Sunday, one of our Sunday school teachers, they weren't in Sunday school. This is a group of maybe 9 and 10-year-olds, and we were talking about safety and police. And one of the kids was like, "If the police come, I'm gonna run." Why? Because the police gonna shoot you. I'm like, well, again, media plays a role and a part in that. And he was literally afraid. So I picked up my phone and I called Chef Waters. This may about 6 months ago. When I picked up my phone and called Chef Waters, this kid ran out of the Sunday school room crying. I'm like, oh my God. And so his mom brought it back in, and he had a conversation with Sheriff Waters on the phone. And ever since then, he's been a little bit more calm, cool, and collected. But that it kind of goes back to, what Sergeant Henley was saying, his approach. So a lot of times we can't control JSO's approach, but we can help control the youth approach to JSO. So for me, that was a profound way. And even though that wasn't a play class, that was a Sunday school class, it was an opportunity for me to open up. How do the rest of you all feel about JSO? I was able to implement play into my Sunday school class. So it was good that Chef Waters picked up. He was getting ready to be on his way to church. He sat on that phone for about 30 to 40 minutes. And he talked with my class about that. So, but play is a great program, and Auntie Johnson is implementing in Health Zone 4. We're implementing in Health Zone 1, and so it's just doing great things.
I'm a 69-year-old man, to be quite frank with you. My experience, and, much younger than the rest of you guys. My experience has been police pull up behind me or pull beside me. I don't know why I get nervous or get anxious. And a lot of it may be because of my youth growing up and what it meant. But I've just recognized that why am I being anxious? I'm not doing anything. What is it that, but it's a carryover from my youth. And Officer Henley, he is laughing right now. So I'd like for you to at least let us know why you're laughing, because you probably can identify with what I'm saying. It's not the first time you heard it.
It's hilarious because I know there's studies out there that show it, not to get real deep with it, but especially when it comes to the African American community, we have been brought up to once again have that fear of the police, and the police was mainly controlled by our white male counterparts. So and this is the thing with having true, authentic, and tough conversations, because you have to learn some of those, but some of those entrained knowledge, instilled knowledge that we have with knowing that at one point it was mainly dominated, which is still heavily dominated by a white male class. However, we have some diversity in many departments, but this is an organization that's mainly strongly ran as a white male, predominantly ran organizations as far as within the United States of America. Also, the other part to that is, and I know we got to go into cyberbullying, so I'll just say this real quickly, Dr. Kane, is that when you're in the store as a young person, and you definitely see it in the African American culture, I rarely ever see it in my white counterparts' culture. But when you're in the store and the police walk by, the parents tell their young African American boys, "If the police, he gonna get you. He gonna get you." So once again, it's feeling that instill knowledge, and you're becoming a person. Oh, okay, I'm supposed to fear him. I'm supposed to be inferior to him. This person is a villain. Sir,
the police is a villain.
The police is a villain. Exactly. Right. So now with what we know and been factually taught in American society about how African Americans were supposed to be inferior to the police and their white counterparts, and then these same African Americans to be instilled in their own communities by their own parents and their own next of kin and they are still being inundated that there were the police, he's going to do this. And I promise you, I put my hand up, I promise you, you don't want to do that around me, because I will take your baby and hug you, because I have done that before. Time they said that, went to the baby and started hugging the baby. No, I'm not. I'm not going to take you to jail.
Right.
You know, if it's anything, if it's anything, we're going to do something. But once again, and one parent literally cussed me out for doing that. I mean, really, African American, cussed me out.
Ironically, the one thing, if that policeman that pulls up beside me or behind me, if I look and I see they black, it goes away.
Well, let me say that he preferenced that by saying he's a 69-year-old male, and he's also should mention that he's from the South. I don't have that life experience. I was taught that you take care of your business. When they pull you over, know your rights and stand firm on the truth. So I've never been afraid when they pull me over, because I have my license and everything intact. And so I don't necessarily agree, but I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in an all-black community where officers of the law were coaches oftentimes, and they were very entrenched in the community. So I don't share that. I don't share that opinion at all.
It's a generational thing. I will agree. It's a generational thing, and I'm from deep South. I'm deeper than what you are.
Well, the Jim Crow laws, the Jim Crow laws heavy in the South.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying the Jim Crow laws is heavy in the South.
Yeah.
So, you know, the South was very much different from the North and Midwest. So
it makes.
Julia, I want to get back to you. Yeah, Julia, go ahead and talk a little bit.
I just want to throw in real quick that I do have some of that anxiety as well, Dr. Kane, because I'm thinking, was I speeding? Or, you know, let up on the gas a little bit and all that kind of stuff. So a little bit of it, you know, you still have, no matter what area you live in. Yes. But I do want to say our Empower 360 Resiliency Training Program has really got off the ground. We were commissioned to train 100 students, and we surpassed that tremendously the very first year that we were funded for the program by the Partnership for Child Health. And that's going into the schools over in Health Zone 4, and I'm hoping we'll trickle over to Health Zone 1 and some of the other health zones pretty soon as well. But it has helped us here at the Jacksonville Urban League, because you think, oh, everything is okay, everything is fine, but then you do understand and learn that children are going through some things. They're going through, you know, bullying, they're going through being bullied, they're going through the violence and all of those things. And then there are some kids out there that have not experienced those things up front and personal. But I do appreciate the fact that we're funded to do this. And even if we weren't funded, we're incorporating it into our curriculum for everything it is that we do. But to help our kids in every possible way, and the reason why it's 360 is because we use a lot of different tools in order to get the point across of anti-bullying and anti-violence and the resiliency component of it. And we've incorporated a little art, you know, because sometimes kids can understand that a little bit better. And I found this fantastic book that gives multiple ways that you can help a child overcome having been bullied, fear, you know, that they're just going through some emotional things. I even have one of my own grandchildren, you know, he and my son and his mom, they're getting a divorce. And so, you know, you're right there in the middle of it. So you love your dad, you love your mom, and you just don't know which way to go. So sometimes he struggles a little bit, and he's a very brilliant child, and it's affecting his schoolwork. He made a D for the very first time, and I'm like, oh my goodness, you know, so I got to call him and talk to him. But it's there, and sometimes it is inside of the family. And I want to say this real quick. When his dad, my youngest son, was at Reebok, he swore he gave himself a reputation, thinking everybody's supposed to look up to him and all of this kind of stuff. And so he was always trying to bully people and bullying people. And one of the funniest things, it was sad as well. You know, I got a call one day from the school because he was bullying somebody. So when I drive up to the school, I saw my son running, and he was not running toward me. He was running away because these other kids who had more of a reputation than he did was chasing him. So by the time he ran out of those brand new tennis shoes, he realized he didn't have as great a reputation as he thought he had.
Goes around, comes around.
So that's it. So I told him, I said, one day, everybody's not going to be afraid of you. One of these days, somebody's going to let you know that. And so that happened, and he stopped doing that. I don't know what happened with the marriage, the reason why it's dissolving, but that does happen. And sometimes you do it intentionally, and a lot of times you do it, it just kind of slips up on you. But once again, I am grateful for the funding that we received to do this particular training and making it broader, because everything is not just, decision making. So we're using a lot more topics to get the point across, to the kids.
I had a question I wanted to throw at Corey and Sergeant Henley, with regards to all this talk about managing young Black men and their bullying. Where do we draw the line or the concerns with the emasculation? I mean, it's getting to the point where a young boy can't be a young boy anymore. So the interaction between two boys or a group of boys is far different than the interaction that he has with everyone else. And as society continues to give us ways to report and call to order these things that we've done, do we increase the emasculation of young men?
I think I want to get a little bit more clarity for my sake. What do you mean when you're saying boys can't? I'm gonna paraphrase you. Boys can't be boys.
Well, society today is saying that a young boy can't say anything to a young girl. If she finds it unpleasing, then it could be construed or as harassment. Okay, then the young boys can't congregate together and have that kind of exchange, because now it may be a game with the fear that they're going to harass someone. So we're taking the avenues out of young men to engage in the things to assist them in manhood and masculinity, as we seek to curtail bad behavior. So I'm saying, what kind of challenges do the two of you see on that line?
Well, that's for me. I think we've lost a sense of community. I can just only go for me. When I was growing up, I played football a little bit. My twin brother played a lot more than me. I played baseball. We played for the same athletic association. And so a lot of the conversations we had was with Coach Michael George, and Coach Whitley, who coached football and baseball. We had these conversations. And so we had conversations on how you speak to young ladies. We had conversations on what's appropriate when it comes to touching young ladies. We had conversations on what no means with dating young women. So my grandfather stepped up. My dad died at an early age. So I had the avenues surrounding me. My coaches at Pop Warner, my grandfather, and then my uncles on my mom's side, not my dad's side though. My uncles on my mom's side. There was a community that talked with me. We're in a different space now. Everything's so sensitive now. I'm just going to be honest. Everything's sensitive. And so my son is blessed to have me in the home. I'm not your traditional pastor. Me and my son's 15 now. We talked about condoms at 12. We talked about how to put them on. We talked about you're going to be growing. You're going into adolescent. You listen, son. You can go to jail if you send someone your age, 14, a picture of yourself. That's called child pornography. Mm-hmm. And so these are the conversations that when we were growing up, it was like, okay, let's have a conversation with your son. Okay, the mom and the dad of this family, the mom and dad of that family get together. Hey, listen, you guys are too young. You don't send inappropriate text. You don't do this. Now You're 13, you send a text message to somebody else 13, an inappropriate text, they're gonna come knocking at your door. Child pornography. So I would say there's a challenge for those that don't have the right mentors, the right peers in their life to help lead and guide them. One of my biggest frustrations is I know that my son's going to be okay. And so when I see people trying to mentor my son, I'm like, no, there's someone the same age of my son who doesn't have anybody in their home. And I think the problem we have with mentors, with big brothers, big sisters, the 1,000 male mobile, a lot of them don't want the young men that really need it.
The biggest problem.
We want the young men that's going to make our programs look good. We want the young men we can go put those blazers on, take them to the White House, take them to meet the governor, but then we're missing a whole slew of kids. So I get where you're coming from, Tyrone. It's just that we're in a different time now, and believe it or not, it's gonna cause a lot of issues for a lot of our young Black males that do not have this kind of support in their corner.
And it used to be, we were fearful because our parents would quickly say, we'll slap the black off you if you don't do what I just told you to do. Okay. And if I hear anything different in the street, you be living in another neighborhood because they're gonna think you're a white boy. I mean, when they meant slap the black off.
Well, I can't say anything like that. I can't say anything there. Julia, I want to ask you a question because since we made this about men, I want to ask you a question because I've personally witnessed some young ladies, girls, and Sergeant Henley, you may have also when you're in the schools, who say things to one another that I am just amazed. And I'm thinking, was that a young lady that said that? Young girl? What in the world? So, Julia, I want to ask you, in the work and interactions that you do, the young people that you work with, tell me, are you seeing any difference in behavior in girls versus boys, and or are you seeing girls are sometimes just as bad as boys?
Well, it gets to be like a 50-50 split because I know, because we've been doing the internship program for quite some time. And when I first got here to the Urban League, the girls were so rough and so raw that I was like, I could not hardly believe, my ears when they would be talking, and some of them would just, do all sorts of things. And so, but down through the years, it has changed somewhat. So you get the girls, the young ladies now that think a lot more of themselves than in the past. So they're much more respectful, much more, kind of looking at, no, I don't want to be with those, because we generally have we generally hire more young ladies than we do young men. And so you have some of those young ladies that know what they want to do and know where they want to go and they may have gone through a course like Corey is talking about for the young men, because they have that respect for themselves and they're not there trying to compete with the boys or be, down with the boys. Now you do have one or two that's always going to be in the mix that does not mind wearing the little hoochie mama shorts, especially even when you tell them not to, that don't mind whatever comes out of their mouth because they're much more comfortable over here where they are with the young men as opposed to staying over there with the young ladies. So I've seen both, and it has changed. I think a lot of our young ladies now are a lot more respectful, of themselves and for themselves. But you're always going to have that split where you're going to have some young ladies that are on the cuff and they want to hang out just like the boys, and you're going to get that. But it has changed. I've seen a tremendous change down through the years.
Now, Miss Wilson, what do you think about this your new concept that's been going out socially with regards to the way women, young girls and young boys are being taught from the start? Women are taught, or girls are taught, to be adversarial against one another, and at the start, young men are taught to be team players. So therefore, then the reporting of bullying between a female onto another female would be less because of the fact that they are geared toward an adversarial relationship between between one another from the start?
Well, I think it is. I think it's very hurtful, and it is not necessarily needed nor really wanted, because my granddaughter, she lives in Atlanta, and she has experienced some of that last year. You know, where they some of the kids, you know, just because of the way a person look or the way a person may dress or carry themselves, you've got that group over there that want to be the adversary. They want to be that person that, you know, causes the problems, always, you know, whispering and saying something and turning other young ladies against, you know, certain young ladies. And then of course the guys, you know, like you say, you being taught to be a team player, but I think there was something lost when it came over to the young ladies to be, you know, a team player as well. And so I even one day she was coming home, and she had gone. My son had taken her to get some carry out dinner, you know, for her and her mom, because my daughter, you know, works at home. So she's coming through the gate of their apartment complex. So you've got a couple of young ladies, and then this young guy, you know. So the young lady pushed her. So the guy snatched the food out of her hand, and he went running. And so then there's some other young ladies in the parking lot. I told my daughter, if I could have left here and got to Atlanta in a matter of minutes, you know, they would never have done that again. So, because I was just that angry about it. Because now my granddaughter does talk, you know, but she does not bully or try to get into, you know, she's that one that thinks that she can calm everybody else down. And sometimes people don't want to be calmed down. You know, people want to go at it. And so she just happened to try to help somebody at the wrong time. So of course they pushed her and shoved in, and she had this beautiful hair. They snatched the hair and went running through the school and all of this kind of stuff. And all of those things just made me cringe, because they're not teaching our young ladies to be team players. We are teaching our young ladies to separate themselves because you may be better, or this group over here is a better group than that group over there. So it is, you know, it happens, and it's unfortunate.
It is very interesting. If you guys get a chance, there is a video out called Reaction, and they have young teenage girls and boys, and they show them, and these are done with actors. They show them where a statement is made from a young girl to another young girl, and they are asked if it's harassment, and then the same statement, exact same words, is made from a young boy to a male, and asked if it's a reaction, and the numbers were staggering. High 80 to 90% is that the same thing can be said between two girls, and the group, both male and female, not consider it harassment, and both groups would consider that same thing harassment between males.
Yeah, they do that sometimes on What Would You Do? They show scenarios of if it's done by a female versus a male, and you're right. Even in most recently, they did in a store, an interaction of an employer talking, you know, demeaning to an employee, and it was different when it was, you know, depending upon the gender. So listen, believe it or not, we're beyond our hour, and we
left out cyberbullying.
We never did get into cyberbullying, but obviously this is a very complex conversation that requires more than one discussion. One reason that I recommended that we talk about it tonight, quite frankly, and we didn't get into it, I mentioned it, is because it's alarming to me and disturbing, and almost gives me an anxiety when I hear elected officials or aspiring elected officials, the way the campaign ads, how they talk to one another, and thinking like we seem to be normalizing this type of behavior, but yet the expectation with our children, we want to scold them when they do something right. But as adults, I think we need to check ourselves. I'm not going to get into cyberbullying because that'll take us far beyond the hour, unless our guests want to continue the conversation. We do like to be respectful. So
we can always bring them back for a whole nother show.
We'll definitely want to bring you all back, and we're going to let Tyrone lead the discussion, because that's his, you know, he's a technology wizard. And he, you know, thing. Tyrone doesn't want to believe that. Anyway, we ain't gonna talk about that. But
Let's go now. Let's go
thank
next.
you all so much
Let's go
for
November on the cyberbullying.
sharing your insight, and I hope our audience, really gain some perspective. Tonight was not meant to solve all the problems of the world, but it's simply to share with you the different scenarios that people are experiencing bullying or being bullied, and to also give you a snippet of what these people are doing in order to make our communities better, at least here in Northeast Florida. At the end of every show, we like to give our audience an opportunity to share their final thoughts. But before I do that, I want to pause for a second, because we also have a history maker moment. Tyrone does his homework and will pull something out of the hat, the internet or whatever. And so I would like to ask our guests, don't go anywhere, because Tyrone is going to show our history maker moment, and then we're going to come back and wrap up the show and ask you to share your final thoughts for the evening. Go ahead, Tyrone.
This is Pause for the Truth, History Makers Minutes. Today is October 15th, 2024, and we will deviate a bit from a specific history maker to the subject of bullying as a whole. Bullying, an age-old problem, has evolved with technology. While traditional bullying happens in places like schools and neighborhoods, internet bullying or cyberbullying knows no bounds. It leaves victims feeling constantly under attack. How is internet bullying different? Firstly, the reach and permanence. Hurtful messages and embarrassing photos can spread to a vast audience within seconds and stay online indefinitely. This creates a sense of inescapable humiliation. Secondly, anonymity. Bullies can hide behind fake profiles, making it harder to identify and hold them accountable. This emboldens them to engage in crueler behavior. Thirdly, 24/7 exposure. Unlike traditional bullying, cyberbullying can occur at any time, day or night. Victims are constantly bombarded with negativity, leaving them with little respite, and lastly, no escape. The online world is integral to a young person's social life. Victims of cyberbullying can feel trapped, unable to disconnect without sacrificing their social connections. Understanding internet bullying is crucial in our digital world. By acknowledging its unique dangers and exploring the complex motivations behind it, we can work towards creating a safer and more compassionate online environment for everyone. Thank you for joining me on Pause for the Truth History Makers Minutes.
Wow, thank you, Tyrone. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. So we did a little snippet of cyberbullying. We never know what to expect when Tyrone does that. So as we wrap up tonight's show, looks like we already lost Corey. I guess he had to move on. But Julia, can you share your final thoughts regarding tonight's podcast discussion?
Well, I think it was very, very needed. When you first mentioned it to me, I was like, oh my goodness, what could we possibly talk about? But I'm glad that you came up with this particular topic. And I think it was very much needed. One thing that I did find, it says, why is bullying so common? It was the power of dynamics. Some individuals may seek to establish dominance over others to feel powerful and secure. And I think that's really the main reason why bullying takes place, because one person wants to feel more superior and more secure than somebody else. So this has been a great discussion. And because of the fact that we're involved in teaching these classes to our kids, I think it's definitely very, very much needed. And I don't know if there's ever an opportunity, Jocelyn, for you to bring some kids on, but if it is, please, consider doing so.
I think we can do that with the cyberbullying part, but go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. And we've also talked about, since we're all so over the hill in age, bringing some younger folks on to engage in discussion. So thank you, Julia. Thank you so much. Okay. Sergeant Henley, what are your final thoughts regarding tonight's topic?
Well needed. I'm just excited that we have people in the community that are still reaching out to trying to make a difference. Parents, we definitely need parent involvement. It is critical. It is crucial.
Yep.
Parents must and have to be involved, and we must begin to parent. And there are places like the Urban League who have parenting classes, and I know that every now and then we think we don't need any help, but we we need help, and podcasts like this even help with parenting. And sometimes these talks and these engagements and these tough decisions actually set people free mentally, physically, and psychologically. So I definitely believe in what you guys are doing, and I think we need more of it. And I think that once we move with society with knowing how to parent, then we can better raise our community and our young people the way they should go.
Thank you. And also just a reminder of how young people and even adults interface with law enforcement, to not be fearful, but just be respectful and come with that smile. I like that, Sergeant Henley. And by the way, happy birthday. I see the balloon. It's a little deflated, so I don't know how long ago your birthday was, but
It was somebody's. I just didn't know who it was. I was going to ask as well.
so it looks like Corey is still on. Corey, are you able to come back on camera? If not, just go ahead and say a few words as we wrap up tonight. Your final thoughts.
Hello, everybody. So I'm gonna go right back off camera because I have connection issues, and so it works better when I'm not on camera. So thank you for the opportunity and the space to come and share a topic that's well needed. Thank you all for the space for me to share my personal story and how bullying, how being a bully impacted somebody else. Auntie Josh, I know you shocked, like, no, this is not true. This is the absolute truth, and it's important that we continue to push these kind of conversations, have programs and strategies that help our young Black men, young Black women, just young people in general, to process anger, process what's going on in the home. Thank you, Ms. Julia, for sharing the story about your grandchild. See, when we think about these things, we never expect it to be close to home as it is. And as we begin to share our stories, we begin to say, you know what? This is more common than we think. This isn't just a low income problem. This isn't just a problem that happens in the projects. This is a global problem. It is a global problem, and we see it in politics. We even see it in church. Bullying happens in church. You know, we see it on every spectrum. So thank you all for bringing light to it. And again, I'm always happy to be on the podcast with you and Dr. Kane and Tyrone. Again, thank you all for the opportunity.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Tyrone, the technology wizard, do you have any final thoughts regarding tonight's topic?
Well, of course, we didn't get into my favorite aspect. So, of course, we're going to have all three of you back to have that conversation about cyberbullying, because I've got questions. I just want to leave our audience, our viewers, with the simple ideal and concept that you've heard echoed through here. First, with Sergeant Henley, who said parenting. Well, all deviant behavior in our children starts with parenting. Let's just be honest. All right. So we have to be involved. We have to be aware, and we have to take responsibility and ownership as parents. And we talked here about bullying. Bullying is someone trying to assert the power. Well, people who try to assert power feel they have none. And so where do the youth of today get their power from? They get it from their social network. So as parents, we need to be a part of that network to guide them in the right path. So I'm going to keep it brief, but that's my closing thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you, Tyrone. Dr. Kane, what are your final thoughts?
I will start out. Thank you. I want to thank all our guests for coming, and we're taking up so much of your time. I knew it wasn't going to be enough time for an hour. I knew that would never be enough time, as I always state, Ms. Turner and Mr. Jackson. But we still have to at least address the subject, and then we can make more time later. But we have to start somewhere. And I think we started off very well this evening. A couple of quick things. Early in the program, we talked about, the fear of police and people fearing that they utilize their power to take advantage of people in a situation. There are police bulliers, for lack of a better description, just like there are they're a microcosm of society. So bullying is not necessarily exceptional only to the police, or police are not accepted from. What's the word I'm looking for? They're not relieved of any responsibility of bullying as well. So one of the things I like for, and I'll make mention of it, and people can think what they want to. I like the marijuana amendment because if nothing but to save our youth from issues down the road in terms of encountering legal issues with their survival and their place in society. If we put them behind bars, I don't care if it's once, for something as minuscule as a joint, that can totally disrupt the rest of their future and make things look pretty bad in terms of, how they view their future. And it may entice them to become more rebellious or whatever it might be, because they don't, at that point, they lose their power of citizenship as compared to others. The other thing I want to do is commend Officer and Sergeant, commend the Sergeant for his respect that he gives to youth. I like the idea of Mr. and Mrs. I've done that for years. They can come in, they be 14 years of age, and I go Mr. or Miss, because I didn't want them to think that it take away from their place in terms of the communication that he or she has with me in our office. So I give them all the respect. It's Mr. or Mrs. The last thing real quick is I can't wait for the cyberbullying, because that plays a huge role in terms, I think, of just the overall topic of, it's just a subcomponent of bullying. But in today's society, it's a huge pathway for people to be able to bully. And we need to address that cyberbullying, because not all bullying takes place in person. So I can't wait for that next program. I want our guests to come back and let's just light it up and be ready. And thank you for all the time that you guys have given this evening. I know we went overtime, so I apologize for that, but it was not easy to even grab the amount of information you guys gave in an hour. There was just no way we could do it.
Thank you. So as we wrap up today's important discussion on bullying prevention, I want to leave you with a few key takeaways. Bullying is not just a schoolyard issue. It can happen anywhere, in schools, workplaces, and online. But the good news is that we all have a role to play in stopping it. Whether you're a parent, teacher, friend, or bystander, you can make a difference by speaking up, showing empathy, and standing with those who need support. Remember, change starts with awareness, and from awareness, we can build stronger, kinder communities. So let's continue these conversations, educate ourselves and others, and create spaces where everyone feels safe, valued, and respected. Thank you to our guests for their insights, and thank you, listeners, for tuning in. If you or someone you know is experiencing bullying, don't hesitate to reach out to the resources available in your community. Together, we can put an end to bullying and create a culture of respect. Until next time, take care and be kind to one another.
And there we have it, another episode of the Pause for the Truth podcast in the proverbial books. Our heartfelt thanks go out to every one of you who took the time to tune in. Mark your calendars, we're here every Tuesday at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. Feel free to join our community on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. But the golden ticket? Subscribing to our YouTube channel. That's your passport to all our latest episodes and exclusive content. A special mention to the wizard behind the curtain, Tyrone Jackson from Call Tyrone IT Services. His technical prowess and unwavering dedication are the backbone of this podcast. Next week, we'll be back with more. Until then, tell your friends, tell your family about our show. Your support is invaluable. And remember, keep that curiosity alive. Keep seeking the truth.